Welcome to another iteration of the jungle tier list. It's been 3 months since the last one, and the Feral Flare came out in between the Vel'Koz tier list and the Braum tier list, so there's quite a bit of changes, especially in the fighters tier list. First, I gotta establish the fact not every jungler will be covered in the video. Most of them will be covered in the article, so go ahead and click in the link in the description. Also, these are my opinions and yada yada. Feel free to debate in the comments and all that jazz that we get every single video. The tier list is divided into 5 different types of jungler brackets. Magic, support, bruiser, tank, and fighter. And fighter is the one to receive the most changes. And while the description of what a fighter is better in the article itself, I should just kind of go over it really quickly. It's essentially the champions who are in there are assumed to be building pretty much pure glass cannon, maybe one defensive item at the end, but they're mostly being built for damage, straight up murdering power. There's certain factors that support it, and you can read what those factors are in the article, but overall burst tends to be much better than sustained damage. So you'll see the list kind of favoring assassins more than sustained fighters. Vel'Koz was finally added to the tier list, and he's fun, but he's really bad at the jungle. I really do wish he had better clears, because I just love that whole cannon barrage kind of thing. It's sort of like how they envisioned Xerath, I would think, but they kind of made it for Vel'Koz. He clears very poorly even with the spirit item, so it's kind of meh. But damn, he's probably one of my favorite mid champions right now. He's just so cool. But as a jungler, he does not work. Now, Lulu is one of those junglers that make you ask, why the hell is this working? Why? But when you use it, it's actually pretty funny to use. And my voice broke there, but whatever, Lulu. Her support features are known. Everybody knows what she does as support and that she's pretty strong in it, and that she can go mid lane and still be supportive. The thing is, her jungle aspect scores and her whole clearing, mana sustain, all that stuff is pretty average or like mediocre. That's just and her ganking, though, is the highlight of her, I guess, jungle phase. She's pretty goddamn good ganker, and she's good at poking and counter ganking. If you can survive the jungle aspect, and it's not that difficult with her. It's just weird and wonky. And then, of course, you transition into being some sort of pseudo AP carry with your supportive qualities, and that's something you might consider trading off in the jungle. Do you go for that weird-ass jungle phase till you can become a really annoying support type of champion? I would actually say, she might be worthwhile trying out in ranked. I'm probably soon going to go from playing her in normals and practicing her customs to go into a ranked environment with her. I am not that experienced with Lulu, but I'll see if I feel comfortable enough to start going to ranked matches with her. I have high hopes for it, actually. Akali is one champion that people kept asking me to review because it was being used by a few people, and which surprisingly she isn't anymore. Anyways, she was added to both fighters list and magic damage list. Now, I'm sure some people will be upset with her placement, but I honestly am not too fond of her. She does not have the best early clearing or ganks. Hell, I'd consider her early ganks possibly weaker than Braum's. Even after level 6, I still doubt her ganks, since she brings no real use for crowd control. Yeah, she has a lot of damage, but she's still overly reliant on the enemy team being in the bad place at the wrong time, or teammates having some form of crowd control. Either way, most jungle duelists in the early game can still break her balls, even if she just hides in her little shroud. Or if she gets the upper hand, she might actually have a chance of killing them. At least she's a straightforward jungler, and that can be seen as a plus. She doesn't have any complexities. She's just damage, throw Q, slap them, that kind of stuff. And man, Gragas has been by far one of the most impressive junglers I have played as of late. I played him the week of his rework, and I was disappointed at his clunkiness and inefficiency, so I didn't pick him up again. However, with the advent of support Gragas, I got, the idea of, what, I should take whatever build they're taking in there, and I should throw it into the jungle. It worked impressively well. I mean, the damage aspect of it, when I built him AP, sucked, and the bruiser side of him is kind of mediocre, but the tank side is amazing. If you build him solely as a tank with cooldown reduction, health, and some resistances, he becomes really unkillable. And his new W is just so spam where you can use it and just smack people around. I mean, they added a slow to his Q. They made his E a knockup, and he still has his beautiful ultimate. In fact, they gave it back some of its range. That's a lot of crowd control for one character. Not only does that make him automatically a strong ganker, but that makes him a really strong bodyguard and a really strong initiator. He can initiate a fight with his ultimate, go in and hit the front line with his fat, and then throw his Q and slows the enemy team down. Or he can throw his ultimate ultimate, but defend one guy and just keep the enemy from even touching him. He's got a lot of crowd control, even more so when you buy Iceborne Gauntlet on him. The way that his W is so spammable, you always have that to proc. It's so awesome. I don't see him as an offensive tank of any kind except outside of initiation, so I see him more as a defensive tank. He's really strong at being a bodyguard, and it's just pretty much keeping the enemy team zoned out from your teammate. And his cooldowns are so ridiculously low, he gets to spam his abilities, especially when you get even more cooldown reduction. His ultimate being on such a low cooldown during the ganking phases is pretty much unfair. I gotta say that. It's kind of awesome just to go in, gank somebody, then go home, and then your cooldown will be refreshed. You go in and gank them again. Of course, it's not the easiest form of ganking, but it's still pretty fucking strong if you do it properly. He's a really safe tank too. I don't think a lot of other junglers can counter jungle him or fight him that well, at least in comparison to a lot of jungle tanks. And that alone can make him a very good pick. Just the fact that all these popular junglers that would take that would abuse someone like Nautilus or Sejuani can't abuse jungle Gragas as much as they could those other two. That's a really wonderful thing. Master Yi is basically in the same spot. I kind of have to mention him because people are going to wonder why isn't he higher tier or why is he overrated or whatever. He was tier 1 prior to Feral Flare being released. It only gave him a power spike a bit earlier, but you got to understand that a farmed Master Yi, even with or without the Feral Flare, will tear you to pieces. That's just kind of his nature. Urgot and Jayce were added to the list because of fan requests, not because they really cared for them. They pretty much do suck in the jungling, even though you can make them work for fun, or you can force it to work so well somehow in some very weird situations. But overall, you're just kind of forcing two champions who shouldn't be in the jungle to be in the jungle. Warwick did see a lot of love with the Feral Flare, though. He didn't really have strong offensive items until from the Spirit line until that item came out. Now he's got an extra jungle item that gives him a really strong, power spike, and it kind of works with what kind of champion he is. Farm and then gank and that kind of stuff. So he saw an increase in all his brackets just by the release of the Feral Flare. He still kind of has the whole weakness of relying on his ultimate to do pretty much anything in certain team compositions, which is going to knock him out of it. But you know what? He's really strong, and his win ratio shows that. The best way I can summarize Fiora is a worse Master Yi. Basically, Master Yi with boobs. She's one of the champions who saw a huge spike in power thanks to the Feral Flare, but it still doesn't make up for most of her weaknesses. She can't gank worth a damn, even with her ultimate. She's a strong duelist, but most other junglers will just avoid her because she's not gonna kind of do anything. She'll get juked through the bushes. And, she does farm surprisingly well, especially once she gets to Madrid's Razor, and she can get out of control. But she's got a huge gold requirement in comparison to a lot of other characters like Master Yi. She's strictly worse, so she's kind of just in her own little tier down there. She's okay. There's no real point to pick if you can just pick Master Yi or other farming junglers. But it still won't really be a huge detriment is all I'm trying to say. I actually finally included Irelia into this, and I gotta admit, she's a pretty fun champion to use, surprisingly at that. And she's functional and whatever, she can survive the jungle, but she's so damn slow. And she's probably one of the worst fighters in the jungle though, because her power spike comes way later than everybody else's, as it requires a huge amount of gold. And she's not the fastest farmer, so it's gonna take her a little while. She can gank, but it's nothing, that impressive. So she's just, let's just call her once again a kind of a weaker Master Yi in the jungle. Everybody is getting compared to Master Yi. Jax is sort of facing the same thing as Fiora and Irelia, in that he does have a steeper gold requirement than a lot of other characters. He fares a lot better than Irelia, and honestly a lot better than Fiora as well, since he actually has crowd control and stuff, and he can be a bruiser better than both of them. It's just, he takes a while to, get his power spikes in comparison to a lot of other fighters. So as a fighter, I don't think he's that great. As a bruiser, he's lovely, he's wonderful. He's somebody I like to pick, especially with the Feral Flare. He's not the tier 1 or anything, but he's a solid tier 2. And the fact is, his late game is so much stronger than a lot of other champions, especially a lot of the ones that are above him in tier. That will sometimes make him a better pick than them. Alright, Foxtrap already covered this in his video, and I did host it in the article, but since it is the Braum era tier list, I do gotta go over him. Braum is a terrible jungler, plain and simple. While a lot of players may argue that otherwise and claim he can survive the jungle, it doesn't mean anything when you bring in, other champions to compare it to him. He is weaker than any other jungle tank you could likely want to bring, and his support qualities do not make up for it. His clearing is on the levels of Shen. Fucking Shen! And his ganking is wholly unreliable. Yeah, he has a range slow, but it can be blocked by almost anything. It's a slow, then he has to walk up to them and punch them in order to stun them. Yes, the teammates can proc it, but that means he relies on his teammates paying attention or being there. Other than that, he doesn't really have much damage, and his W can't be used on wards or anything else. It's got to be on his minions or his teammates. So there you go. You kind of have to have the right conditions in order for him to gank. Yeah, when his ultimate, his ganks become much better, but most people have reached their power spikes at level 6, so they'll probably do things to you in return. The thing is, a jungler that can't farm and can't really gank all that well and doesn't really transition into anything too impressive, at least more impressive than he could have from the lane, then there's kind of no point. I mean, if he had good farming but shitty ganks, you could make him work. If he had shitty farming but amazing ganks, then you could justify him. But he's got neither of them, and then his later game from the jungle doesn't really, mean much or give you much reason to strip him from his lane presence. As a jungler, he doesn't work, and I know he wasn't designed to be a jungler. It's just I know people want to know this, and people will still argue about it or whatever. People are pretty passionate about it.